You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Now, I will mention that both Kelsey kind of, and then Mahomes definitely are both Big 12 alumni, technically, right? I mean, Cincinnati's in the conference now, right?
They are.
There you go.
Right.
There you go. That's the transition. Kelsey likes basketball.
Wait, really quick, just on the point of like parity and like what you can do. Like the championship matchup in the AFC features a Texas Tech quarterback and a quarterback from Wyoming. You can find talent anywhere, and that's what teams are doing in the transfer portal right now too.
I would also point out that you have that happening, but Jalen Hurts went to Oklahoma when they were a Big 12 school, right? More Big 12 connections there. And then Jaden Daniels went to Arizona State, which is now a Big 12 school, right?
Yep.
That's all the connections.
Yeah, they're more
all the time. We're going to be coming on this to talk about a Tuesday night basketball game that has been moved to Wednesday night. So if you're listening to this and you have not heard yet, the Tuesday night matchup between Houston and Utah at the Fertitta Center has been moved to Wednesday night at 5 o'clock local Central Time for ice and rain delays and stuff like that. I bet it's a fairly empty gym. It's pretty gnarly in Southeast Texas right now. Just the whole state's like below 30, and then they've got a whole bunch of rain precipitation come through. So if you can safely get to the game, we hope you enjoy. If not, the rest will be watching us on ESPN Plus Wednesday night. But JT, you guys, first of all, are much more used to snow, but also had a pretty big weekend in hoops. BYU, I thought was really good this year.
I think BYU thought they were going to be really good this year too. If you asked them coming in.
Well, you sound like someone who has. So tell us about how that one went, because you got to play a few extra minutes in that one.
We did. I mean, an overtime thriller. And look, Cougars, I also thought they would be better than they are. But the Kevin Young hire was such a big get. I feel like there were things that were kind of being said about BYU before like the era even began. And now they're playing some games. And also I think what BYU fans forgot is it takes a coach time to build his program, to get his guys in there he wants. And yes, Mark Pope had done a good job when he was there. I've liked him, and I think he's doing a pretty good job at Kentucky right now too overall. But it's hard. It takes time. And I think you see that with a BYU team that they entered the Utah game like coming in. They'd lost a couple in a row. They were not trending in the right direction. This is a Utah team that they had been struggling before their win against Oklahoma State. And I know Oklahoma State's not very good, but that was Utah's first win against a Power Four. Obviously, we include the Big East and some of the other ones too. So more than that, but just like a legit basketball team. That was their first win against one. Well, then they turned that into a win against TCU. Okay, also a nice win. Well, what are you going to do against your rival at home? A big game. Craig Smith has been at Utah now. This is his fourth year. There's some conversations about, is he going to come back for another? That's a big game. You got to win. And Utah was able to gut it out and win a really ugly contest. This team is playing some of their best ball right now, finding ways to win. Assar Holmes is becoming a star a little bit. I mean, you go 26 points in a rivalry game like that, with almost all of those coming in the second half. This Utah team's got some shooters too. Now, Gabe Madsen was 1 for 11 from 3, but when he's hitting them, he can be pretty effective too. So look, Houston's the better team in this matchup, but ESPN's got us at a 5% chance to win. Can I at least get a 10%? I mean, come on.
You mentioned something though, because I want to ask about this Madsen kid, because he shoot a lot of threes, and he missed a lot of them over the weekend. And my worry is really that like the regression to the mean kind of math. I mean, he's going to hit a lot of threes on Wednesday. Who is this kid? Why is he shooting 10 threes a game?
He's actually a former Big 12 alum, before even Utah, because he was at Cincinnati before he transferred to Utah 3 years ago. His brother Mason is also on the team. So you have Gabe and Mason Madsen. Both of them like to fill it up. Gabe is the better player. And yes, it's been a little bit of a struggle as of late for Gabe Madsen. People know he's the best player on this team, so they've started to try and key in on him. And I mean, he has not made over 3 threes in a game since. He was 4 for 14 against Iowa State, but the last time he was efficient from 3, honestly, probably be that St. Mary's game on December 7th. Teams know that Utah wants to get him the ball, so his degree of difficulty is incredibly high on those shots. But because they'll do so much and be so aggressive trying to take Gabe away, that's going to open things up for a guy like an Ezra Assar. This team also was so transfer heavy. I think it took them time to craft their identity. So now you don't just have a guy like Madsen. You're seeing the Assars. Keo Do is stepping up. You're getting a couple other guys. Mongolian Mike is another one for Utah where he's starting to do a little bit more too. Miro Litter, the Baylor transfer. There's a lot of new pieces starting to come together. Heck, Caleb Lohner was playing football at Utah, the former Baylor basketball player. He was playing football at first, and now he's his team's like backup center. Like, that's how crazy this makeshift Utah team has been. And you couldn't ask them to be playing much better basketball than they are right now, heading into this game against an incredibly tough Houston team.
A former football player being a backup big man is actually kind of close to my heart. I love that a lot. And I want to talk about Dawes, and I want to talk about Assar, because I think Assar, like you mentioned, if you look at his box score, it's kind of come on late. But the other Madsen has actually shot a much better percentage from three. Yep. Is that kind of just because he's getting less looks, or is he the more efficient one, but Gabe gets all the shots? What's the catch there?
Yeah, Gabe will take them at a much higher degree of difficulty versus Mason is going to be more your catch and shoot guy. And I mean, even you look at the BYU game, right? He only ended up playing him for 5 minutes. Now he normally gets a little more than that, but Gabe is the guy that Utah wants to get going. They want to let him fill it up from three. Gabe has the green light. Mason has a green light, but it is not as green as Gabe Madsen. So Gabe is the guy who's going to be out there. Defense is keeping track of him at all times. So definitely a difference in how those two are utilized.
Keo Do, you mentioned, has kind of come on as of late as well. He's a Houston area kid. Went to Stratford High School. He went to Rice last year. Now, obviously, we want Houston to win here as a Cougar fan, but if he were to get 20 points, I don't think it would. And Houston won, I don't think people would be upset. I think it's kind of a best of both worlds thing. What have you liked about Keo Do? How's he been? What's the transition for him been like from Rice, an American Athletic Conference school, to Big 12 basketball in Utah?
Yeah, he was a guy who started out the year struggling a little bit, kind of had to figure out was okay at the start of the year, but really had to kind of figure out a role for this team. And I like him a lot off the bench, being the athletic forward that he is. I think he's done a good job kind of decreasing his volume in threes. He had a game earlier in the season where he was over 3 of 3, and you're kind of like, that's not really your game. Now, if he's at 1 or 2 a game, I like that. And you look at his shot chart recently, like that's kind of what he's taken. 1 a game, and then outside of that, he can be a guy who goes to work inside a little bit, obviously an athletic body to throw at you defensively too. So I think Keo Do has done a good job for Utah. I think he's been a valuable piece. You need guys like Keo Do, right? Athletic forwards, guard multiple positions. Yes, would I love it if he was an great outside shooter? Of course. But if he was a great outside shooter with his frame, he would not be at Utah. So you see him at Utah. He's able to come off the bench and contribute a little bit there. I think he's kind of found into a nice niche right now. But this is becoming, yes, Gabe Madsen is the best shooter on this team, and college basketball is very three-point heavy. Utah also likes to shoot a lot of threes. This is becoming Ezra Assar's team. With the performance he had against the rival BYU, you got to continue to go to him more, and I do think Utah is going to try to do that against Houston.
Well, and he had 20 points as well. He broke 20 a couple days earlier against Oklahoma State. And so I guess my question is kind of twofold. One, what has he done to take over the team? And then 2, why didn't he have it at the start? Like, why did it take so long?
Yeah, I think it goes back because you're right. I mean, obviously it would have been great if he was thriving earlier on, but he's another guy who's an East Carolina transfer. He was there for a couple of years with the Pirates. So it took him that time to kind of come over and adjust. But now that he has, it's starting to kind of bear the fruits of the benefits if you're Utah too. It feels like this whole team, so many new pieces. I mean, from last year's starting lineup, you have Gabe Madsen back, and at times Lawson Lovering, their center, who is a big body down low. He can do some things. I don't know if it's not a mismatch against Houston, but he can produce a little bit. So maybe he'll be able to contribute there. But like really only 2 guys back, Utah lost a lot. I mean, their point guard went to play for Rick Pitino, where I just for some reason blanked where he's at Iona, I think it is. So or he was, So some of those things. But you lose a lot. So it took this team time to come together. I think they took the coach's time as well. Assar was always one of the bigger transfers they got, averaging 13 a game at ECU. So it really felt like it just took him time to get settled in. And now that he has, you're seeing, and that was obviously, I mean, for him to have a career high, it was a career high 26 for him. And he had a career high just in the second half alone. I think he had 24 points in the second half. Like, that's how effective he was. So he's starting to turn the corner a little bit too. Utah's got to continue to give him opportunities down low inside. His athleticism, his explosiveness is something they have to utilize. His strength too, good quickness down there. You got to continue to go to Assar if you're Utah. I think he's the best overall scoring option this team has, other than when Gabe Madsen's going to start going crazy from three. But if they have to double Assar down low, if he starts to cook, or Lawson Lovering, Utah's other center, that can open up things for Madsen too, of course. So I hope to see Utah continue to utilize Assar down low more and more frequently.
I want to talk about Houston and Utah meeting up last year, early in the year. It was technically a non-conference game.
That's right.
And all that kind of stuff too, because I think that's why it was a close game. I think that's why I'm a little bit on edge about this one going into Wednesday. But before we get too far into that, today's show is also brought to you, as we mentioned several times, by our buddies over at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And from the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300. You heard that right. $300 back in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 in bonus bet to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is so easy to navigate. The variety of different bets, things like that, can keep every game, or as we just mentioned, every season, exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no waiting around for your winnings. And whether you're betting on your favorite team like the Coogs, the Utes, or whomever, or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, like, with the Texans being out of it, you might need to do, FanDuel has got you covered. Visit FanDuel.com, join today, get started with $300 back in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this season unforgettable with FanDuel, a sports partner of the NFL.